Welcome to InTrend, where we explore the trends, challenges, and ideas shaping the insurance industry. When people think about closing a sale, they often picture a great pitch, the perfect timing, or a persuasive offer. But insurance is different. You're not selling something a customer can see, touch, or use right away. You're selling confidence, trust, and the promise of protection when it matters most. So what actually influences someone to say yes? Joining us today to help explore the psychology behind closing in insurance is Patrick Wolgast, Senior Vice President and Chief Sales Officer, Professional Lines at USLI. With more than 17 years of sales leadership experience, Patrick has spent his career helping build high-performing teams, strengthening agency relationships, and developing strategies that drive long-term growth. He brings a unique perspective on what motivates buying decisions and how trust, communication, and timing all play a role in successful outcomes. From building trust and overcoming decision paralysis to understanding what really motivates buyers to act, this conversation is packed with practical insights for anyone in the insurance industry. You won't want to miss this episode. Patrick Wolgast, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's great to see you again. I worked underneath of you for years, and I did some number crunching and found that I made over 40,000 sales calls with your leadership.
Well, my response to that is it should have been 50,000.
That doesn't surprise me. Well, thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you as a guest and talk about closing and the art of selling insurance. And it's not the same as selling other products. It's not door-to-door vacuum sales or anything like that. Insurance, it's its own game. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, you're not selling a tangible product, right? You're selling a product that your client or your prospect hopes they never have to use. So when it comes to that, it's very much about the preparation, the education, making sure that they understand, the contract or how they are transferring risk. So I think that what people sometimes struggle with is if I go and buy a car, I drive home in that car, I can feel where my value went. Insurance isn't like that. So you really have to be consultative in your approach and make sure that your client understands what they're buying and why there's value in it.
That's a great point. In my experience, nothing works in insurance sales like somebody's experience with a claim, right? I myself had one with a washer, a leak. It was a nightmare. And I thought to myself, boy, I'm looking forward to making sure I have the right insurance moving forward. So talk to me a little bit about that. We don't want to scare people into purchasing something, but that is an important element.
Yeah, I think it's a big balance, right? It's a balancing act of you don't want to sell through, fear mongering or whatever you want to call it. But you want to make sure the client's educated and understands that these risks are a real thing that can happen. And so part of that education, part of that discovery process as you're working through someone looking to buy insurance should be them understanding what would be a covered claim, what wouldn't be a covered claim, what they're really coming into a contract with. And so claims examples have been huge for us in the sales process, and especially when they're relevant. If we're insuring a restaurant, giving them some restaurant claims examples. Once they understand and really can wrap their arms around what they're up against, self-insurance becomes almost a not possibility.
Is it tough getting the initial buy-in though, right? Because you use the car as the example, and no one wants to buy a car and park it in the driveway and just look at it forever and say, maybe I have to drive somewhere one day and I'm going to use it, right? It's a tough sell. So we also don't want to send someone home with a packet full of claims examples and say, hey, go read this with dinner, it'll be fun material. It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
It is. And the uneducated consumer will always default to price. In my experience, if someone is really just harping on what something costs, it's because I didn't do a good enough job of explaining all the other things, all the other features and benefits behind it. So cost is a real thing, especially in today's marketplace, but you have to focus on educating the potential consumer. That's how you're going to really get to a point where you can close them, to call out our topic here.
Can we talk about price a little bit more? That is a huge deal. And I get that feedback on my own calls quite a bit. Hey, this quote was far more competitive than this one, or this one blew this one out of the water, right? It's a little more complicated than that. Often the story runs deeper. Can you elaborate on
100%.
that?
Yeah, in insurance, I don't know why you would want to play that race to zero, right? And some of our competitors do. And anyone that wants to enter the marketplace and just try to undercut everyone. But I know you've seen that they don't last that long in any type of market space. Um, so a lot of times people do default to the price thing, but when you do a coverage comparison, when you show them the difference in products, that's really where it comes to light that, yeah, this one's more expensive, this one's less expensive, but there's a reality as to why.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I always allude to that as well. If one is particularly or uniquely low and might be attractive to somebody, there's usually a reason
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
difference,
yeah,
right? Right?
yeah. What do they say? If something's too good to be true, it probably is, right? So, and the same thing is you're showing them in the concept of a tangible product. If we keep harping on cars, use a car. You can go out and buy an $8,000 car. You can go out and buy $108,000 car. There's differences between the two.
Right. One might go a little quicker
One
than the
might go
other.
a little quicker. Yeah.
So these conversations are everyday things. In our world, it's short sales cycle. These are day-to-day conversations that we're having. Our agent and producer colleagues, our customers are having them with policyholders. What is important? What are some of the things that are important in establishing some of that groundwork to lead to a close or a successful sale?
You're all the entire process, in my opinion, is trying to demonstrate trust. I know you said that we have a short sales cycle. I think regardless of short or long, I think it's all about how do you establish trust and understanding with the client or potential prospect, right? And that comes down to understanding their needs, educating on them on what they're looking for. I'm a firm believer that I think when we talk about a close, we think it's this moment. Right now's my time to close. I have to say this thing, and they'll say yes. But if you lay the groundwork, if you understand where they're coming from, the close happens all along the entire process. The goal would be that when we finally get to whatever end decision, and one of the great things about insurance is that there's always some sort of time. Either the renewals due up, there's a contractual obligation, whatever it is. But when you get to that moment, they should almost close themselves of, this person's done everything possible to educate me on why I need this, why it's important, what the alternatives would be. I have to buy this.
There's a lot there, and I'd like to get into some of the detail that you alluded to in terms of maybe contractual requirement for somebody to purchase insurance is pretty straightforward. A lot of insurance is beyond that, and I would say strong insurance purchases are limits that are above contractual requirements or coverages that aren't in the contract, right? And that's a kind of a separate ballgame. But if we can stay on trust for a moment, do you have examples of when trust was built well, and then in the inverse, examples where there was a lack of trust that got in the way of a close?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually just talking to a colleague about where trust was built well, and trust was built well because the salesperson, actually walked away from the close, if that's what you want to call it. They were working with a prospective client, trying to understand their needs, educate them on where they could help them. And after a long conversation with that client, they just said, you know what, I don't think that I'm who you're looking for. I think that, what I want to do, which they wanted to be able to present value and really build them a strong insurance product. And at the time, I think the person was just chasing a contractual obligation.
Sure.
Like, you know what, I don't think I'm a fit for you. So I need to walk away. And the person really respected them for that. Flash forward a year later, they came back to that person and said, okay, I basically had a piece of paper that was as cheap as I could possibly do for the last year, and I wasn't covered on a couple things that had happened. Now they obviously have some claims on the book, so it's a different conversation they're having with the insurance salesperson. But their trust was built way before any close situation. It was because they walked away because they didn't think they could bring them the value that they wanted to, and that person has been a longstanding client with that insurance agent that I was just talking to.
Wow, that's a great example. I hear things in there like return to the table, right? Obviously, that your sales professional had a follow-up system in place. That person knew that they could go get them. They could go reach them again. They knew where to contact them. Talk to me about some of that follow-up and staying committed to win business, because there's a delicate balance as well between walking away and then giving up too early, right? Or being afraid of failure, right? Or being told no right away and fear of rejection.
Yeah. And if we could pause, if I could go back to kind of your other, the second part of your last question was when trust wasn't built well. Right. And I'll put me and you both on the table that I know early in our careers, we were just trying to sell as much as humanly possible without understanding maybe what somebody needed, so I think that, and it's not just a young thing. It happens to everybody. You get so excited. You're thinking about whether it be a commission or performance, whatever, and you're just trying to force a square peg into a round hole. There's zero trust bill. You're like, I know what you need. I'm not even listening to you. Here's this product, right? So that's that's something that we would obviously want to avoid.
Wait till you see what I have for you. It's so good.
This isn't even what I do.
Yeah, you're so lucky that I called you today.
Exactly.
Yes, I unfortunately have made those calls as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
We went from that part where examples of things that didn't go well
to the follow-up.
Right,
correct, yeah.
A huge piece when it comes to sales, right? And a lot of people are afraid of rejection. A lot of people maybe get a taste of it and then back off and aren't continuing to call. So there's layers to establishing some of this trust and getting there. And in my opinion, I think a relentless follow-up effort is mandatory.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I can tell that, you and I worked together for a long time because I'm in the same boat. I don't think that there is anything better from a well-executed follow-up process, and one that is rooted in bringing value. You're not just a diary system. We talked a lot about getting buy-in from the person you're talking to and follow up. Hey, I'd love to follow up with you in a month, in 6 months, get their agreement, so that you can kind of say to them when you talk to them again, hey, as I mentioned, I was going to follow up with you. Now I'm doing it. Just showing people that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I know if we wanted to talk for the next 20 minutes about it, you and I both have instances where 5 times we talked to someone and they wanted nothing to do with it. And the 6th time, for whatever reason, life happened, something changed, whatever it was, we called and they couldn't wait to talk to us, or we met with them and they couldn't wait to talk to us. And so it was that follow-up process that got us to a point where, where we were in front of them at the right time. We've also said a lot, kind of 3 times you can follow up: too early, too late, or at the perfect time. You're never going to find the perfect time, or at least I've never found the perfect time. So I'd rather be too early than too late.
Yeah. I like a few points you made there. And one is doing what you said you're going to do. I think that's a really big deal, right? I'm going to follow up with you in 1 week, and you actually do. How far does that go in establishing some of that trust that you'd alluded to earlier, and the confidence that that person can move forward with you and purchase insurance, for example, or even that car we were talking about? Doing what you said you were going to do in a timely manner.
I think it's paramount. Even if the person, the client, the prospect doesn't acknowledge it in the moment, whether like, wow, Will's doing what he said he's going to do, I think they start to understand your patterns. I mean, people are really pattern based, right? And they start saying, wow, when Will says he's going to do something, he does it. Or when Will says he's going to follow up with me, he does it. Oh, I better have this thing ready for Will because I know he's going to call me on Thursday. I don't want to deal with not having it. So I think that that's just, I recently heard, a phrase, do one thing like you do everything, right? So if they see someone that's executing really strongly on the things that they say they're going to do, I can't help but think that would bleed into the other aspects of their professional life.
And you're naive if you think you're the only sales representative working with your client, right?
Yep. How do you differentiate yourself?
How do you separate
people calling them?
How do you separate yourself from everybody else? And one of the major ways to do it is to have a great follow-up process and do what you say you're going to do on time.
Yep.
If we could get back to, you made a really good point about contractual requirements. That's a huge element of insurance sales, right? We call, oftentimes I'm asking about X dates. Hey, do you have an expiration date coming up? And when are these opportunities going to present themselves? Somebody has a date, they look at what the contractual requirements would be for their insurance, they achieve those, maybe a bank's asking for it, and they move forward. But you and I both know that, us as an example, we have package policies with robust coverages that go above and beyond what would be necessary from a contract. But that's a tougher sale, right? Because you're asking for somebody to pay more money for higher limits or different coverages. Can you talk a little bit about that in your sales experience and navigating that sale?
Yeah, and I keep having to go back to the discovery phase, and it doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out process, but just really understanding why someone's coming to you, or why someone is looking for insurance at that time, or if you're reaching out to someone, understanding their wants, right? If you talk to a client and they say, well, I just want insurance because I need a contract, right? The contractual requirements, probably want to talk through them of, hey, here's what I would like to do. I would like to meet those needs, but also make sure that your business is safe, that your family is protected. The other thing is a lot of times people are looking for insurance. Why? Because there's a claim, right? There's an open claim, right? Or there's a potential for a claim. Now they want insurance.
A friend had one and was scared.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So understanding the why behind their buying decision and what they're looking for, there's a firm belief that, the end result is just the sum of how great your process was, right? So if you have a really great process, you can get to a moment where, the end game is almost done for you. So I think that has to be part of your process and looking to build that out.
I think there are a couple big takeaways there. I think about some of my strongest customers, ones that I admire the most are ones that dedicate time to speak with our underwriters and professionals in the industry to learn themselves to the nth degree on what they're looking at, so that they can present it with the utmost confidence to their client and know that they actually have, the right intentions behind it, right? And are bringing to the table sufficient coverages so that that person can really kind of feel that trust. And that's a really big deal. I think we've covered a lot of that. I'd like to get into that last second close, right? The decision at the end, because there's usually decision paralysis in all elements. It's not just insurance. But you mentioned maybe stepping away. Have you seen other approaches when it comes to the big moment, the close, the decision time? There's some paralysis there. What are other navigations, or how have you seen professionals navigate that?
The people I've seen do it the best take accountability themselves for the client, prospect, customer, whatever you want to call it, for their paralysis, right? It's not, we don't get to this moment and it's, you're not ready to make a decision, right? We get to this moment and it's, okay, I obviously haven't given you enough information where you feel like you can make an informed decision. Have we covered price? Have we covered coverage? Have we covered your current liability? And making sure that they have the confidence. Like, everyone thinks about a salesperson themselves needs to be very confident, and but we need to give our clients or prospects as much confidence as possible in their buying decision. So whenever I felt like there was any type of paralysis or hesitation, I would always put that on me and say, I obviously haven't given you the information that I needed to give you. Let's walk through it again quickly.
Really important point there. If I had to look in the mirror, I know many times I, word vomited and I had so much great information from somebody.
We've all done it. Yeah.
Right. And I learned over time that one of the most effective approaches is simply asking at the end, can I have your business?
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. You always got to ask, have I done anything to not earn your business? Right.
Yeah.
And then even the other people, I know you've done this well, I've seen you do this well, but the other people I've admired, if they haven't gotten the business, I said, can you give me some feedback as to why I haven't got the business?
Right.
Obviously, because I'm going to follow up with you 3 months later and change whatever feedback, or try to if I can, but really understanding, why maybe they didn't get a piece of business and learning from that.
It's a great point. As we approach the end here in closing, I'd be curious if you had one major takeaway for a listener here. What would it be?
Be okay with mistakes. As long as you are, in my opinion, as long as you are pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, mistakes are going to come, but you're going to learn so much from them. And the best salespeople I've seen in my life and the best salespeople you've seen in your life were okay pushing themselves out of their comfort zone just a little bit. And sometimes they fell on their face and sometimes it worked out. And as they got more experience and more confidence, those shortfalls happen a lot less and those successes happen a lot more. But I think they weren't afraid to extend themselves.
That's really great. Thank you. What do we say? 300 hitters go to the Hall of Fame?
That's it. It's 3 out of 10 times.
We used to say that all the time.
Yeah.
Love it. Patrick, thank you for being here. It was great talking to you again.
Thanks so much for having me. Well, I appreciate it.
For our listeners, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on InTrend.